You are entering the bonus stage, a podcast produced in association with oceanofbees.com, with your host Marauder
and Phoenix923,
a podcast for all gamers,
console and PC alike.
Welcome to Bonus Stage.
Greetings and welcome to Bonus Stage, a podcast produced in association with oceanofbees.com. As always, I'm your host Marauder.
And I'm Phoenix923.
And we are recording this on December 9th, 2014. This is episode 33. Little bit of a 3-month hiatus, but we're back.
It is just a lot of holidays. I
get so busy during the holiday. It's ridiculous.
But of course, you work retail.
I know I do. Last week's paycheck was nice, though.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so yeah, we're going to jump right into this. We actually can't check what's new on oceanofbees.com because apparently the website is under construction. I can't even get it to show up in Firefox, and Firefox always has never failed. So it can't be the web browser, it has to be the website. So that basically leads us into like news articles and stuff. So we got a couple things to talk about. This being December. I don't really know where I was going with that. I'm just going to let that kind of linger there. But we've got a couple of things to talk about.
There it goes. What? Movies plot?
Yeah. That was awful.
Yeah.
Oh, in jokes. Okay, so we've got a couple things to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about what did I say I wanted to talk about?
The Square Enix thing.
Oh yeah.
The Australia Grand Theft Auto 5 thing.
Oh yeah, let's talk about those two subjects. That'll make for interesting podcast radio. Anyway, so the first thing, yes, is Sony's reveal that they are releasing the game Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 4. And they revealed this in possibly the biggest kick to the balls of fans they possibly could, where they announced it, everybody got really excited, and then they revealed it was just a port of the PC version, which I think is also available on Steam, if I'm not incorrect. So then everybody's like, oh, it's the same game that I played already.
Yep.
Yay!
Didn't you say like the before and after pictures are pretty hilarious to look at?
Some people have the best, like, what do you call them, like memes online for that. It is fantastic. There's one that's like a picture of just like a room of everyone just sitting in chairs, orderly, just completely disinterested. And it just says, when you realize that a game you love is being re-released again as an old game.
Hmm.
Or the before and after, the like during the announcement, then after the realization of what it was. Great little memes going on. But now I wanted to bring this up specifically because I know you're a massive Final Fantasy fan, far more than I am. Actually, I'm not even a Final Fantasy fan, so I suppose.
Yeah, played them all except for the online ones. Couldn't care about the online ones. So
I have a friend at work who really, really likes the online ones.
As soon as they drop that stupid pay-to-play monthly thing on either one, then sure, I'll pick them up. But yeah, no, I just... The thing with me is that I'm usually kind of busy to where I really don't have as much time to play games. So if I pay for like a month subscription, I might get maybe, I don't know, a couple of hours use out of it, which in my opinion isn't worth it. So yeah, that's why I've never actually got any of the online games. Although, however, when Square Enix revealed that they're releasing the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy on Steam, that surprised the hell out of me. Basically I pre-ordered the first game instantly.
Yeah, I have the same stance on things like that, where I really enjoy games like Guild Wars that's free to play, but games that I have to pay every month to play, it's really off-putting. Even services like Xbox Live, I just don't really see the point when I can go on my PC and go on Steam and play online with my friends on Steam for no cost whatsoever.
Exactly. I was kind of like with Elder Scrolls Online. You know, I actually enjoyed playing Elder Scrolls Online for the during the closed beta, but then they announced, yeah, it's a pay-to-play monthly subscription fee. I'm like, well, not playing that. So
I have so many other games I could play in the meantime that it's like I don't really need to be spending $10 a month or $15 a month on a game when I have 10 or 12 games in my backlog on PS3 alone that are like worth playing instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, But yeah, anyway, this is kind of I'm wondering, this brings up the question, what do you think about Sony ever, actually remaking Final Fantasy VII? Because we've talked about this before.
Never gonna happen.
Right, and I don't think it's ever gonna happen either. The game is too massive, it's too big. There's too much.
Yeah. Nah, it's just... The main thing that I know why they won't is because of the whole world map thing. Final Fantasy hasn't had a world map since Final Fantasy IX, a world map that you could actually walk around on and go from place to place. And that alone is pretty big portion of the game, so with them to, completely recreate that, as well as recreate all the locations, probably in 3D now instead of the whole
the static camera angles and stuff.
Well, there were pre-rendered backgrounds. That was it. That was the word that I was looking for. But yeah, so yeah, they're basically going to have to remake the entire game, and it's just too big, too much work, too much money to put into it. That I just honestly don't think that they will, when it's far more cheaper to just throw it on another console of the port that they have.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to actually do an HD remake or an updated remake. It's just not going to happen. And that's not to say that it's a great game, don't get me wrong, and I'm all for people playing the original versions, and sometimes those HD remakes can go horribly wrong.
Yes.
So I would rather them not do it than attempt it and do a poor job of it. But it's kind of annoying when they make this gigantic announcement and then...
Pretty sure they'd figure some way to get microtransactions in it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. If you want to just auto level Cloud to level 20, you can pay us 200,000 square coins.
They already have that in the PC port, actually. It's kind of shitty.
That's right, they do.
They do. They have that magic button where it basically levels everyone up to 99, gives you 99 health and 999 health and 99 magic, max amount of money, and that's it.
I could see that though if you just wanted to play through it for the story, if you just wanted to know what happened, because they have released, movies to coincide with this game that's now, God, when did it come out? 97?
It's over 15 years old, I think.
Right. So people are like, I want to know what's going on, but I don't want to spend all that time playing it.
Yeah, I don't want to grind for stuff. I just kind of want to play it.
Yeah, so I could see that, and at least it's an option. So, yeah.
Well, I'll just say having the 9999 health is not going to save you against Safer Sephiroth.
Oh yeah, no.
That final battle is brutally hard.
Yeah, that final battle took a while. I never want to play that game again. I played it through once. That's all I needed. Although I will say it was my first, when I got my PlayStation 1, it was the first game I played on my PlayStation 1, so it holds a special place in my heart. Speaking of Sony, by the way, it's the 20th anniversary of the PlayStation.
Oh.
Yes, as of just a few days ago.
Oh.
So, and to mark the occasion, Sony released I forget what it's like, 12,300 PlayStation 4s that are all modeled like the PlayStation 1. Not like modeled, but like the color scheme is all, that kind of gray color.
Yeah.
And the controller has the, looks like the original.
Oh, that's cool.
PlayStation controller. One of them just sold on eBay for $15,000.
Wow.
No kidding. Or $15,100, something like that. 15 grand, which is ridiculous. Although it looks nice, I will say, I actually like the way that it looks more than the standard black model that they have out. I think they should honestly just push that color into general production.
Mm-hmm.
Like, still keep that limited edition limited, but give us that color selection or color choice, because, man, it looks good. Yeah, but 20 years of PlayStation, so let's dive into that for a bit. That'll be another topic. But let's move on to our other topic that probably won't take too long to get through. But apparently, Target stores in Australia have decided to pull the game Grand Theft Auto 5 from their stores, and they're not willing to sell it anymore.
I think there was some sort of petition people did.
Yeah, this all stemmed from a petition that had something like 40,000 plus signatures.
Yeah.
I think started by former prostitutes or something.
Yeah, going back on that old argument.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just really old. It's
yeah,
old.
Well, anyway, they basically the petition was that Target should not sell the game because it portrays violence against women. Okay. Where were you when Grand Theft Auto 3 was out?
Where were you when Grand Theft Auto 4 was out?
How about Vice City?
San Andreas?
Any other kind of open world game where you could run over a number of people, shoot a number of people? I mean,
Saints Row 1, 2, 3,
Saints
4,
Row,
5.
all the Saints Rows.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I don't. A lot of people, I think, are getting upset about this for all the wrong reasons. Target has every right to stop selling anything that they want.
Yeah, I know.
And it's, I think it's more a good PR move than it is a business decision. Plus, they did it now when most people who wanted it probably already bought it. So, they're probably not losing too many sales over it. And on top of that, this is coming out of a country that just, as of a few years ago, stopped censoring their games
Mm-hmm.
and actually started having M-rated games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean in large number anyway. So it's kind of backpedaling a little bit for them, but again, it's not like you can't walk into a GameStop or whatever the Australian equivalent of a GameStop is. I don't know specifically, but it's not like you can't just walk in there and get Grand Theft Auto. You can.
It's not banned. It's just not
in
Target stores anymore.
Right. It's not banned. Target just said they don't want to sell it, but you can go to a Best Buy and get it. You can go to a GameStop and get it.
Order it online.
Or for clarification, whatever Australia's equivalency to that store name is.
Yeah.
I don't live there, so I have no idea. But yeah. So I think people are making a bigger deal of it than it really should be. It's not censorship. It's not a ban. It's just Target in Australia said, you know what? Let's not do this. And they didn't. They have every right to do that. Same as, any other store can have the right to not sell something that they don't approve of.
Yep.
But, so, yeah. I just want to throw my 2 cents in. It's, like I said, it's a quick little issue that we wanted to bring up, but yeah. So moving on. 20 years of PlayStation. That is quite an accomplishment for a company that, when they initially came out with the system, really had no business being in the games business.
They were originally going to work with Nintendo and make a console for both of them.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of pulled out.
Well, it wasn't... Nintendo stabbed him in the back is what happened. Because Sega had developed the Sega CD.
Yeah.
And so Nintendo was like, we need a CD system because CDs are the future. And who makes the CD player for the Genesis? It was Sony. So they went to Sony and they said, all right, we want you to make our CD player. And Sony did. They started working on an add-on that was going to be called the Nintendo PlayStation. And it was going to slap onto the bottom of the Super Nintendo and allow it to use CDs and whatever. But, long story short, they were also in talks with Philips to do the same thing. Well, they never told Sony this, and Sony wanted, I don't remember exactly, but they wanted a bunch of, things in the contract. Like, they wanted rights to the technology, and they wanted rights to license the technology, and Nintendo makes most of their money off licensing to third parties, or at least they did at the time. So, that was a big no-no for them. And so rather than say no thank you, they got up in front of a crowd of people at the Consumer Electronics Show one year, which it's now called E3, but and basically announced that or Sony went up first. Sony went up first and said, we're working on this system with Nintendo, and it's called PlayStation, and they showed off a little thing, whatever. And then Nintendo came up and said, no, forget that. We're working with Philips. And Sony was so upset that Kutaragi, who's the father of the PlayStation, went to the president of Sony and he said, basically, we just got embarrassed in front of the entire world and we need to respond. And he's like, we know what we're doing. We have a console. We've researched this. He goes, let's just do it. And the president of Sony said, okay, do it. And they did. Yeah, and they launched the PlayStation 1, and it was quite a success, I must say. When was the first time you ever saw a PlayStation? Do you remember at all? This would be 95, 96 probably?
Yeah, this, there was a bunch of kids that I hung out with that were just kind of down the road. So, one day, I think it was the first time I actually went in their house, because normally we'd just kind of play in their yard. They had a PlayStation. So I was just like, oh, you guys have a PlayStation? And they're like, yep. And then we played a bit of Crash Bandicoot on it, and just went about our business.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw one was my older sister, sold her Sega Genesis and went out. It was hers to sell. I was upset, but I mean, I wanted it, and to this day, I'm still looking for a Model 1 because that's the model that she had, and that's the model I used to play on. And anyway, she sold everything, and she went out and bought a PlayStation. Mm-hmm. Now, I was very much like a Nintendo fan. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fanboy, but I had the Super Nintendo and I had the 64, so I was, and whatever Game Boy was out at the time. So I was very much playing on Nintendo. And she brings home this PlayStation. I had never even seen this before. I had no idea. But we went out to Funko Land. We went out to Funko Land, and she bought the PlayStation, and then she's like, pick out 2 games that you think would be kind of fun. Because she knew I was into games, whatever. So I walk over, and I remember the 2 I picked out. I picked out Twisted Metal 2. And I bought that entirely based on the cover. Because it was just that character Axel with it, in torture gear, whatever it was, tied to the 2 gigantic wheels, firing rockets. I'm like, this looks interesting. And then it was, what was it? Oh, Crash Bandicoot 2, Wrath of Cortex, whatever his name was. Crash Bandicoot 2. And I knew who Crash Bandicoot was mainly because of commercials, but I had no idea what the game was like. And yeah, we brought it home and played it, and it was great. And, I still preferred the N64, don't get me wrong. But every once in a while I go in there and play our PlayStation. It was fun. Do you remember, were there any, games, if you could name maybe 3 games that stuck out to you on the PlayStation?
Symphony of the Night.
Oh, God. Oh, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Uh-huh.
No, but I have a little thing to go with Castlevania.
Okay.
There was a kid in my high school who was a grade or 2 above me, and we would always hang out and talk games, and we played, pen and paper RPGs and stuff. And he bought a PlayStation 2 in 2001 or 2002, and it was backwards compatible with PlayStation 1. So he didn't need his PlayStation. So he sold it to me for $15. So I went out to Blockbuster. God, I feel old. So I went out to Blockbuster.
Funko Land, Blockbuster, jeez.
Next time I'm going to tell you about the first time I saw a running car. No more horses. Anyway, I went out to Blockbuster to buy some games for it because he sold me the system and 1 memory card, but no games. He let me borrow Final Fantasy VII, but he didn't sell it to me. But anyway, and I bought Castlevania Symphony of the Night because I had read in magazines, whatever. Because this is 2002, I think. So it was, the PlayStation 1 was well documented as to what the good games were. So I did a bit of research about what kind of games I should look for, and that was number 1 on a lot of people's lists. So I saw it there for brand new for $10, and I grabbed it. And the other game I bought was Mega Man Legends 2, which was a game.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
And that was those were my first 2 PlayStation games. And I had rented Mega Man Legends, or borrowed it, from another friend of mine at school. So I had already played most of it, and I wanted to keep playing it. But he was, wanting his game back after 2 weeks, and so I reluctantly give it back to him, but then I bought my own copy. And yeah, I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and here's the thing. At that point, I had never played a Castlevania game before. I never played the ones on the NES at that point. I knew of them, but I didn't play them. So I didn't quite understand what was going on. I liked the fact that it was Metroid-esque, because I loved Metroid, I still do. But I couldn't figure out how to save my game. Because I kept dying, and then it was well, it keeps starting me way back at the beginning. How am I supposed to get through this castle without dying? And that's when I learned those little swirly octagon things, whatever they are the actual save points. I'm oh. No, but that was Castlevania Symphony of the Night blew my mind. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite games. It's the only game I don't mind buying digitally, just so I could carry it on my Vita.
Yeah.
And play it. And it's on my 360, and it's on my PSP. I bought Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles on PSP just to unlock Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
That was exactly what I did too, and I never touched that game again.
I know. Once you figured out how to unlock it, then you did it, which was quite a ways into the game. You just did not care anymore. Yeah, and man, I loved that game. Just such a great game. Such a great game. And, yeah, Mega Man Legends 2 was also just, I don't know, there's something about Mega Man Legends 2 that I just fell in love with. I think it was just, not so much the story, but I kind of like the whole dungeon exploring thing and the
It was a different type of Mega Man.
Yeah, it was different and it was fun, and I liked the characters and I liked the art style and I liked the music, and it was one of the, okay, that game was PlayStation 1 games always looked a little chintzy to me. You know, they always looked really blocky.
Hadn't figured out the polygons yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Mega Man Legends, I would always compare it to what I was seeing on the N64, and it was like, nothing ever looked as good as what was on the N64 to me. But Mega Man Legends 2 was the first time I looked at a game and went, this looks better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this looks better, if not as good as an N64 game. And I loved it. Took me forever to wrap my head around the controls, but once I figured out you turned with the shoulder buttons, I'm like, okay. There was a lock-on feature, so it was pretty much a moot point, but
yeah.
But yeah, actually that game made me a fan of Mega Man, and I went back and played the Mega Man games that were on NES and Super Nintendo and everything else because of Mega Man Legends 2. So I guess I have more to thank for the PlayStation 4 than I thought I did. Thank you, PlayStation. I would never have played Castlevania. Well, I probably would have at some point, but I mean, you know, it introduced me to Castlevania and Final Fantasy and Mega Man and so many other great games. Most of which I don't own because they're really stupid expensive right now. But and you could still periodically go in and buy games like at stores. So I would buy just random stuff, that whatever I could find for it. But yeah, stuff like I played the Tomb Raider games on that, which I really liked, and yeah, I don't know, it's just something about it. Is there any more like games you could recommend that are kind of more obscure?
Hogs of War.
Do tell. What is? I've never heard of that one.
Hogs of War is a 3D battlefield type of game where you play as a bunch of pigs fighting other pigs.
Okay.
It's a war thing. It's a strategy game where think Valkyrie Chronicles.
Okay, so it's turn-based, but you still have some control.
Yeah. It's pretty much that, like that. I'm thinking the right one, right? The war game.
Like, it's not Fire Emblem or Advance War, right?
No. I'm thinking the.
It's like it's like 3D walk around, but you have
that war game, that Valkyria Chronicles or something.
Yeah, Valkyria Chronicles.
Valkyria Chronicles, yeah. It plays kind of like that, where you get to move around your guys around on the battlefield, and then you can, take aim at enemies and then fire upon them. It's not you.
I'm gonna actually look this up. Hold on.
You can buy it on Good Old Games.
No kidding.
I just bought it like 2 weeks ago when I saw that it was just released on Good Old Games. It was an instant buy, and I think I think it might be on sale because they're doing their holiday stuff too.
Huh. Yeah, Amazon has it for $119.99 for the PlayStation, or I could buy it on Good Old Games for almost nothing at all. Let me see, what is... Yeah, okay, so goodoldgames.com has it for $2.99.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably pick this one up. I always like games like that, like Valkyrie Chronicles and Advance Wars. I'm not very good at them, but always up for more.
Yeah, no, it has a old turn-based thing. I don't know, I just found it really funny and interesting because you're just playing as a bunch of pigs. Back in the days when you just played as animals.
That was another thing that the PlayStation, I think, did really well was just the sheer variety of what they had.
Yeah.
I mean, you had anything and everything you wanted on that system. Fighting games and point-and-click adventures and rail shooters and RPGs went out the fucking ass on that system. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
And it was great, and it was all fantastic. I mean, yeah, anything you wanted, and really. Now I don't know this, for a fact, but I've read that it was easier to make games for than the than the Sega Saturn or the Nintendo 64. Because the Nintendo 64 was 64-bit, which nobody knew how to really program for very well, and used cartridges, and the Sega Saturn had 9 processors or something in it that you had to learn how to work with, and nobody could figure it out. And well, they figured it out in Japan, because in Japan it apparently did super well, but in America, nobody really cared for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the Sony PlayStation, I think, was the first time I ever saw compact discs, and it was the first system ever to make use of memory cards. And I remember thinking how awesome memory cards were, because back then, everything was saved on the cartridge. So if you went to Blockbuster, you had to find that same copy of The Legend of Zelda or something, and pray to God your save file was still there from 2 weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
And on the Sony PlayStation, you didn't have to worry about that. You just pop the CD in, it reads your memory card, and loads your file, and it was great. Just like I borrowed Mega Man Legends 2 from a friend of mine, and then when I found my own copy, I put it right back in, picked up right where I left off. So, well, yeah, a lot of pluses when it comes to memory cards. Okay, as for obscure games for me, I have 2 that I always liked. One is Croc Legend of the Gobos.
I had that on PC.
Yeah, that game was fun. A little hard, a little weird to control, but fun.
Couldn't believe I beat it.
Yeah, I beat it. I beat it.
That game was brutal.
That game was so hard. But yeah. Oh, funny thing about Croc Legend of the Gobos, it was originally developed as a game for the Nintendo's Yoshi character.
Huh.
But when Argonaut pitched it to Nintendo, Nintendo didn't like it, so then they went over to Sony and published it with Croc in place of Yoshi.
Huh.
Yeah. So imagine that could have been a Nintendo 64 game where you're playing as Yoshi. And that actually explains why Croc looks so weird. Because he basically was a quick swap out for Yoshi. But anyway, no, that game was so charming and cute, and I liked the little Gobo characters, and yeah, I don't know, just a lot of fun. Good little platformer. I don't think the controls would have aged very well, but who knows? Maybe going back to it now, it would play a little better than I remember. I just remember it being kind of clunky. Another game that I kind of liked on PlayStation that was, I think, is a little more obscure is a game called Roll Cage. If you've ever heard of that one.
No, I haven't.
Well, those. Okay, you remember those RC cars you would used to buy that, no matter which way it flipped over, it would always be able to
flip
go
back.
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
Like it could drive upside down and stuff. Imagine that as a racing game. So every single car can do that in this game, and you have the ability to go up on like the walls and stuff.
Huh.
So, but then if you if you crash, you can actually still keep going most of the time because your car just lands upside down and you just keep going. It's actually really interesting. The controls are touchy. It's a good way to put it. But I mean, I just had a blast with it. It was a game my sister used to have. I still don't own a copy of it, but if I ever find a copy of it, I'm going to pick it up. Yeah, that one was always fun. And how can we forget Crash Bandicoot? I know these games, I know it's not necessarily an obscure game, but man, those Crash games were great.
Yeah, I just don't know what it was. They were just so fun to play through.
Good controls and good, I don't know, the character was fun and really expressive, and the music was great, the level designs were interesting, and I don't know. I want to bring up Crash Bandicoot because, like, right now he seems to be like the laughing stock of the video game industry, even more so than Sonic the Hedgehog is, because there hasn't been a Crash Bandicoot game in forever, and that's really a shame. Even his racing, even like his kart game on the PlayStation, the Crash Team Racing, was really fun. So, yeah, no, props to Crash.
Speaking of Sony, since, I don't know, just I'm kind of on my Vita right now, just kind of browsing the store, just because I was wondering if there's any other good old PS1 classics I could download. Found out that there's Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable on here.
Yeah, I know.
Huh.
But it's like $40, and that's the only way to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of games only available digitally, so Sega announced at the PlayStation Experience thing that Yakuza 5 is going to be coming over to the PlayStation 3 sometime next year.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would generally be very, very excited for because I love the Yakuza series. It's one of my favorite series of all time. But they're only putting it out on PSN. They're not actually releasing it physically. Which makes me really, really upset. Yeah. I don't know.
That's a damn shame.
It really is. I guess I should be happy that it's happening at all because Sega's pretty much swore off releasing anything from the Yakuza series over here anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just I have everything else on disc and, you know, on my shelf and everything, and I'm such a big fan of it. I just want that physical copy. And if I have to pay a premium for it, I will. But yeah, I don't know. I've explained how I feel about digital games before. I don't like them. I prefer to have a disc and something physical to hold on to. And
yeah, I'm in that same boat, but I'm not as strict on that as you are. 'Cause basically my mindset is, hey, at least I'm getting it, instead of not at all. 'Cause I bought Ace Attorney 5 on the 3DS just because, you know, the digital version was the only way to get it, and I love Ace Attorney. If there was a physical edition, then I would have bought the physical edition just right away. But I'm just kind of like, oh well.
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
No, I get where you're coming from, you know, because I have, you know, like I said, I have that kind of same mindset, but, you know, my mindset's just a little bit different to where, well, that's the only way I can get it, so might as well be happy with that.
I just don't feel like when I buy something digitally that I own it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I technically really own it. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I need to trade it into GameStop later or whatever. Like, I need that trade-in value. That's not it at all because I barely ever, if ever, trade anything in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I don't know. It's just such an intricate series with such a great storyline and everything. And then it's like, so part of me wants to buy it digitally, but then it's $50 and for that much money, I just feel like I should have a disc.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the other thing is, like, it was physically released somewhere else in the world, but I can't have it because I live in the United States. It's like, really? You can't just press a couple of discs and release it?
Just make it region free.
Yeah.
That's what NIS does with all their games.
I mean, they went through the trouble of translating everything and voicing everything and making everything go to, turn to English and everything, and they're not going to press a couple of discs?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Yakuza games are big games. Big games. Maybe not as large as, like, Grand Theft Auto, but I mean, in terms of sheer scale, they're really, really large. I just don't see them taking all that time and energy and then just releasing it digitally. I don't know, it's weird, but I'm probably not going to buy it unless Sega changes their mind and puts out a physical copy.
Yeah.
And
that's a shame because you're really into that series too.
I know. I play it all the time, and just I don't know. I'm not like upset. I'm just disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But oh well. I mean, for those people out there who like are super super excited, good for you. Because, maybe if it sells well, maybe we'll get other Yakuza games that never came over here, like the ones on PSP and so on. But or the HD remakes on the Wii U. That would be... I won't say HD remakes because it wasn't HD, but I mean, they did a port for the Wii U of the first two games. And, I would love those to come over here because then you would play them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would play them again. Well, I guess they are HD, aren't they? Because they're the first two games, which are only on the PS2. So, yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, getting off that topic. So PlayStation. 20 years of PlayStation. I never would have guessed.
I feel old.
I know, I said that when I did my Sega Genesis 25th anniversary video. I was like, I said that at one point. I just stopped and went, man, I'm old. When a game system that I grew up with is almost as old as I am. And I think Sony did a lot of good for the game industry. I think they had some missteps along the way as far as the PlayStation brand went. Like charging $600 for a PS3 but the PlayStation 2 was backwards compatible. It was the first major console that actually did it right. That you could keep your old library and still keep playing it. And still to this day, I play PS1 games on a PS2 just because it works. And on PS3, actually, too. Surprisingly.
But you don't have that one model that... Oh, wait, that's right. PS1 games just work.
Yeah, PS1 games just work in a PS3.
That's right. No, I forget about that.
Yeah, it's PS2 games.
Yeah.
There was a particular, like, the very first run of PlayStation 3s that were PS2 backwards compatible, and then they cut that out fairly early on to save money. Because it was just killing them, apparently, to add all the chips and whatever from the PS2 inside the box.
Just stick a PS2 board in it. The thing was fat enough.
I know, it's like, you made the PS2 slim. That thing could fit in a shoebox. But, yeah, I don't know. And just the number of great games, like, throughout their history. The funny thing is, Sony themselves, they don't publish a whole lot of games themselves.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of, developing it themselves and publishing it themselves. I think, like, God of War and Uncharted, I think, are the only ones that Sony necessarily has a hand in producing and distributing. But, like, on PS1, I can't even think of a game. I guess the only one is Legend of Dragoon. That was, like, their big push.
Ooh, I love that game, too.
Yeah. I bought it a while back. I should actually play that some more. Well, actually, I have it on my PS3 as well as a download because it was like $1 or something a while back. Yeah, I mean they've really pushed gaming into a more kind of multimedia device. Like, you know, when you bought a GameCube or anything pretty much from Nintendo, it was just to play games. But PS1 came out and it was like, oh, you can play audio CDs and karaoke CDs and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then PS2 came out and it was a DVD player.
Yeah.
Back when DVD players were a real big deal. I remember, speaking of PS2, my cousins had a PC that had a DVD disc drive in it. And so they would go out and get DVDs, and we would sit and huddle around their, like, 12-inch monitor and watch these DVD movies. And I just thought it was, like, the coolest thing. Because they just looked so much better than a VHS tape or something.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, VHS tapes were these things, and they had movies on them, and you put them in the thing, and you'd hit rewind. You had to rewind it, and then it was like a giant box, and you'd put it in another giant box, and it would play a movie. But then one of my cousins got a PS2. His parents went all over when that thing came out and bought him a PS2 on launch. Or I should say a launch model for that Christmas. And for a long time, he didn't have a whole bunch of games for it. So he just played movies on it. And suddenly, it got moved from his bedroom into the main family room because everybody used it as a DVD player. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. Oh, wait, another game. From PlayStation 1 that is one of my favorites is Front Mission 3. Yeah. The time I spent playing that, my cousin had it at one time, and I spent about 2 weeks over at his house constantly, and all we did was play Front Mission 3, and it was, I don't know, it was great. It was really great. And Front Mission 3 is just, it's what got me sucked into turn-based strategy games and made me buy games like Advance War and Fire Emblem and Valkyrie Chronicles and things like that. All based off of Front Mission 3. Because I had never played a turn-based strategy game before then. Well, Shining Force on the Sega Genesis on a PC I had at the time, but you know, that was the one that was like, this is amazing. I always thought it was better than Final Fantasy VII. And start the Flame War. But yeah. No, 20 years, and then the PS3 was a Blu-ray player.
Don't feel bad about Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, in terms of, like, my favorite Final Fantasy, is about the middle of my list. So
I really liked it when I finally tracked down a copy.
It's a good game. It's just nowhere near my favorite Final Fantasy.
I ended up buying a copy of Final Fantasy VII off of a friend of mine at the time, and it was an old Blockbuster rental version. So it was in those gigantic boxes, like the DVD size boxes, and he had rubber banded them together because there were so many discs. So my copy of Final Fantasy VII is in these DVD cases. But I don't know. I kind of like them that way. I think it gives that game character, and I don't know. There's something about it. Maybe it's just partially nostalgia that I don't want to go out and buy another copy. Or the fact that it's like $50 and I don't really spend the money when I already have the game. But yeah.
Yeah, that game is unnecessarily expensive.
Yeah. But no, one thing I will say is it took me a long time to wrap my head around the PlayStation controller. Because the first controller that my sister had didn't have the joysticks. It looked like a Super Nintendo controller.
It wasn't the DualShock one?
Yeah, it wasn't the DualShock. It was just a standard gamepad with no joysticks. And I thought that was the dumbest thing ever, because you go and look at the Nintendo 64, and they had an analog stick. And then you go to the PlayStation, it's like a Super Nintendo controller. I don't get it. And trying to play 3D games with a D-pad was... Sometimes it worked really well, like in Mega Man Legends 2, I thought it worked really well, and other times it worked horribly. I don't know, it never felt quite right. And even when they put out the DualShock, not every game used it properly. Like, I think trying to play Mega Man Legends 2 with the DualShock controller is almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm glad they put that little mode button there to turn it on and off, because god damn, that thing was hard to use. Yeah, but eventually they got it right with the PS2 controller, and then when the PS3 came out, they took the rumble out. And I don't know why they did that. I'm sure I heard it was like a legal thing.
Yeah, wasn't it a patent thing?
Yeah, they didn't want to pay the company that makes the rumble packs or whatever or something, so they just didn't put it in there. And their argument at the time was, well, it has gyroscopic movement. Like, it has a gyroscope, so that's taking up the extra space. And then it turns out that they could have added both anyway, because they did later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean... having 4 shoulder buttons?
Oh, yeah.
That was the first time I ever saw that many buttons on a controller. I was so blown away. And to this day, every major console controller has 2 sets of shoulder buttons. Be it, 2 triggers and 2 shoulders, or I think Xbox calls them bumpers or something, but...
Yeah, they call them the bumpers and the triggers.
Yeah. There's 4 shoulder buttons of some sort now. So, even the PS4 controller has that same kind of setup.
They gotta fix their triggers, though.
They did on the PS4.
Did they?
Yeah, they're actually like triggers.
Well, do they actually like curve out so that your fingers don't slip off them all the time?
Yes, your fingers don't slip off them. Your fingers do not slip off them.
Okay,
and you can actually buy a PS4 controller and have it work on PS3.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm debating doing that just because the shoulder buttons on the PS3 controller are terrible. I don't know how they thought that was a good idea. It slips off all the time. I actually bought those little like clip-on things for it. They give it a little lip at the back, and when I was playing, The Last of Us, that's the button that you use in order to run. So it ended up being extraordinarily useful. And I couldn't imagine playing that game with just the standard PS3 controller.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, Sony, they haven't necessarily been perfect, but in terms of what they did for the gaming space with that system, I think really just kicked the entire industry forward. So, in some good ways and in some bad ways.
Thanks, Nintendo, for inspiring Sony to make their own console.
Oh man, yeah. Thanks, Nintendo. You really did that one all right. You're all right. It's like a giant kick in the balls.
Your backstab made something amazing. It made a competitor. Thanks.
Yeah, no, and I think Sony just crushed when it was when it was PlayStation versus Nintendo 64 versus Sega Saturn. I mean, the PlayStation just destroyed them. Just destroyed them. I mean, the Nintendo 64 had its moments and had its games, but if you look at the sales numbers, it's not even close. And then the PS2, I think that thing sold like 160 million units or something.
Yeah.
And the GameCube sold like 20 million or something like that.
Yeah, well, weren't they still making PS2s like well within the PS3's lifespan as well?
They made PlayStation 2s for like 12 years or something like that before they finally stopped. Because like they launched the Slim model like a year before the PlayStation 3. Funny thing, I always end up getting the PlayStation systems last for some reason. Like I got a Nintendo 64, and then I got a Sega Saturn, and then I got a PlayStation. And then this generation, I got an Xbox 360 first, then a Wii, and then a PS3. And the thing is, like, most of the games I like playing tend to be on the Sony systems. My PS3 is probably my favorite system of last gen. Maybe the Wii a little bit, because the Wii has so many great, hidden gems on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in terms of what I've been playing recently, the PS3 has just been knocking it out of the park with games like Fairy Fencer and The Last of Us and the Yakuza series, and I mean, hell, Journey, just the game Journey, was amazing. Heavy Rain, and it's just so many. Wait, I'm looking at my stack. Hold on. Oh, Hatsune Miku, which I play all the time.
Yeah, the PS3 is getting a lot of those like Japanesey games, and the funny thing is that those Japanesey games are really fun to play.
They are. They really are. One more little negative. I hate the D-pad on the PlayStation controllers. I hate it. I wish they would change it. I mean, I don't have a PS4, so maybe they made it better on the PS4, but that whole segmented D-pad thing just never sat right with me.
Yeah, no, I never had a problem with it. Of course, I don't play fighters like you do, so that's probably why you don't like them.
I prefer, like the Sega Genesis's round D-pad in general, and that whole segmented. Like, I'm not against it, but I just find it really stiff and hard to use. Yeah, for fighting games mostly. For general games, it's fine, and on the PS2, I didn't really have a problem because most of the PS2 games just use the joystick anyway. So, yeah, but man, that D-pad was a afterthought, I think. Like, we can't have a plus pad because that's Nintendo, and we can't have a round pad because that's Sega. Let's just cut it into little pieces and chiclet it and put it on the face of the controller, look like that. Yeah, anyway, okay, so that's it. But thank you, PlayStation. Thank you, Sony. Thank you, Nintendo. You really did bring a lot of great gaming moments to me, even if I don't want to admit it. Because I'm a Sega fanboy. Sega forever, man. Dreamcast 2, 2015. Yeah, so I guess we'll move on to what we've been playing recently.
Which will be very recently instead of the 3 months.
Yeah. Oh, wait, one more thing. Can I bring this up?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So Ralph Baer died on Saturday.
Huh.
Speaking of just the history of the industry with like Sony, let's go back to when it wasn't even a thing. Ralph Baer, for those of you who don't know, was a engineer at Magnavox, I think he worked at. And in 1969, I think, it might have been early 70s, but he wanted to make a box that connected to the television, and it would let you do stuff and interact with the TV. And everybody laughed in his face and thought it was ridiculous. So he made it himself. It's called the Brown Box, and it was eventually released as the Magnavox Odyssey. But, he started this whole video game industry, and I don't think he ever got the recognition that I think he deserved, but I also don't think that he wanted a lot of the attention from that,
Mm-hmm.
I know he was awarded, like, the Game Developer Conference Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, and he was awarded, I forget what the medal was, but he was awarded a Medal of Honor of some sort from George W. Bush in, like, 2006. So, I mean, he does have some notoriety, but if it wasn't for him in the Magnavox Odyssey, we wouldn't be sitting here talking on this podcast. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. Well, I might have, but it might just be about my anime collection instead of my video game collection.
Be an anime nerd instead of a game nerd.
Yeah. I mean, he's responsible for, my favorite hobby, which is video games. And just all the fun moments and memories I have and people I've played with and friends I've made. And it all stems from this guy and his stupid brown box. His quote-unquote stupid brown box that nobody wanted to try, to market. And just to put this in perspective, when the Magnavox Odyssey came out, it was capable of displaying, I think it was like just a few pixels, no color, no sound, and it retailed for $100, which if you adjust that for inflation from 1970, I want to say it was, let's say 1970. But if you take that and inflate it to the cost today, that's $550 for a box that plugs into your TV that does nothing more than play Pong.
Well, no, didn't it have those stupid little screen things where you could put the screen things over your TV screen and play little,
it
quote unquote games. But yeah,
it did have overlays to compensate for the fact it had no color, and it could play like very simple games, based on what kind of, I don't want to call them cartridges, but they were more like circuit boards that you would put in the system. But yeah, it was just a very simple machine, and when Atari came out with the 2600 in '76, it made the Magnavox Odyssey look ancient in comparison, because, I mean, you look at the Atari 2600 now, and it looks really primitive. Like caveman wall drawing primitive. Like, that square is supposed to be a dragon, and that square is supposed to be the spaceship. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you compare the 2600 to the Magnavox Odyssey, and it's night and day. Like, it's like going from the 16-bit generation to the 32-bit generation of consoles now. It's a whole nother ball game. But, anyway, I don't know, I just want to talk about that for a minute because I think it's important. I think it's, like I said, he's responsible for all this. And, so thank you, Sony, and thank you, Ralph Baer, for making video games. Alright, well, anyway, that's kind of the end of my thing there. Okay, I just want to say we're having a hell of a time keeping connected.
Here's the thing, though. I don't know why, but it's always whenever I'm connected to you that I have problems with Skype. Because, like I said, I talk to the guys in the big heist all the time.
Well, what's weird is I don't have any problems.
There's no issues whatsoever, and then I don't have any problems with my internet.
I don't have any problems with mine. Like, I'm on my phone and stuff.
I'm on the Steam forum.
Yeah, I've got web pages brought up and things going. So I have no idea. Maybe Skype's going through like a weird port or something in my router, but I don't know. Sometimes I can talk to people online forever, and sometimes I just can't. I don't know. It's weird. Well, anyway, back to the podcast, because we're almost done. Okay, so moving on to games we've been playing very recently, because I don't want to bring up every single game we've been playing for the past couple of months. So did you want to start the ball rolling, or should I shoot the ball in the foot?
I'll start it.
I was going to say, good, because that doesn't make any sense. Now I got to go in the corner and cry.
First up, surprisingly, I actually have an Android game.
Oh yeah, you
That's,
got that new. You got a new track phone.
Yeah,
Like a really decent track phone.
I got a new track phone, a really decent track phone, yeah. But no, I stumbled across a game called Brave Frontier on it. And the sad thing is that the game is so huge, I really can't have any other games on this thing because it only has 2 gigs of memory. Shame. But no.
You can't install it to like a
Damn phone.
to like a micro SD card on the side or whatever.
No, you can't install anything to micro SD anymore on Android. They stopped doing it in like 4.2, I think. They say for security reasons, but it's insanely stupid because, like I said, that's like the only game I can have on my phone. It's like 500 megabytes. And that's taking up pretty much all the rest of my 2 gigs. I mean, the only way that I can copy it over is if I root my phone, but that's dangerous because I could brick it if I do that. And yeah, I don't want to do that. So, unfortunately, recently I uninstalled it because, well, I got my playtime out of it. But man, I played that like every day since I downloaded it.
I've seen commercials for it, but do explain what this thing is.
Brave Frontier is a free Android game. Now, I know a lot of Android games have that stupid BS freemium. You gotta pay just to actually do stuff, or do it extremely slowly to get anywhere. But Brave Frontier is actually pretty balanced in terms of the pay for and the free crowd. I never actually felt held back due to the fact that I never actually, well, actually I did throw them a couple bucks just because, I had a blast playing their game. But no, when before then, I actually was not feeling it held back or anything just for the fact that I wasn't paying any money into it. And what you do is there's a story mode, and then there's like these side daily challenges. They have like 7 challenges for each day of the week that you can go through and do. And what it is you have up to 6 warriors that you get through summoning through their 2 methods of summoning. And you basically fight monsters in like 5, 6, 7, 8 successive battles. And what you then do afterwards is that you can, I don't know what you do with the monsters, like you capture them. I don't know, it's like whenever you kill like specific monsters, you like get their soul or whatnot.
Okay.
And then you can then use those monsters to fight alongside you, or what you normally do is you fuse them with your characters, and fusing is the only way to increase a character's level, and then you would evolve them once they hit their level cap, and by evolving them then you would need another specific set of monsters to bring them up another rank to make them more powerful, and then you basically re-level them back up to the cap, and then you can evolve them again, and it goes until they can't upgrade anymore, kind of like a class thing. And yeah, no, I don't know, it's just, it sucked. It was practically all of my free time. Basically, whenever I had free time, I would just kind of sit off and just start playing that game. It had a pretty good draw to it. Not to mention, they give away free stuff all the time. Every day, I would get at least like 3 free things. And this included the paid for gems as well. And I don't know, it's just, it's a really good, I wouldn't really call it an RPG, but it kind of is. Because there's certain elements that, I think it's lacking that I think it's lacking to call it a full-fledged RPG, but it's certain elements that it does borrow. It does a pretty good job of it. And
it does it all without making you feel forced to spend real money.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I bought gems because they were actually treating me like a customer instead of a wallet. You know, they weren't forcing me to buy gems. I wanted to buy gems just to throw them a couple bucks of cash. You know, just because, yeah, you know, you guys nailed it in terms of a, you know, free-to-play freemium game.
And that's hard to do because a lot of games hit you with a paywall pretty early on.
Pretty much right away. Sonic Dash is a terrible one.
Sonic Dash is annoying.
Like every single menu you would go through, you had to click through an ad. I just uninstalled that immediately. But no, Brave Frontier, oh, they nailed it. It's a great Android game. Kind of heavy on the size side, but no, I sunk plenty of hours into it, surprisingly, for an Android game.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And my next game is, of course, one of the big uns, Pokemon Omega Ruby. I picked that up. Well, I pre-ordered it on Amazon, then I didn't get it till like a week later. Fun.
I pre-ordered it online, then I had to sit by my front door twiddling my thumbs.
Nah, that's fine. I still have plenty of other games to play during that time, but
right.
But no, I really do like the improvements Nintendo made from this based off of X and Y. They touched up the Pokemon animations so they actually feel more, you know, lifelike and realistic. They're not kind of robotic like they were in X and Y. Not to mention they really improved the animation with the attacks as well. Like,
that's good.
like they show like the Pokemon like actually going through like a full body movement of like throwing an attack or, you know, summoning a energy wave or whatnot, and then they go through the entire motion of your Pokemon or their Pokemon getting hit by it, and you know it's greatly improved upon in the battle animations, and then they reintroduced refighting trainers in it, like they did in Pokemon Gold and Silver back in the day, but it's not as annoying as Pokemon Gold and Silver.
I will say that was the
basically,
most annoying thing
you have
on
like, your Pokénav,
great, you can finally
just a
rebattle
map,
people.
and whenever you hit a route, there's like this little button up in the corner, and you hit the button and it'll show you all the trainers that you can refight on the route, and you just basically walk up to them and talk to them again, and they'll fight you. You know,
that's good.
Same level and stuff, but you know, if you want to go through all the routes again and actually fight trainers instead of random Pokemon all the time, then there you go. And then the best feature, the one that I absolutely love, is their Pokemon Radar feature. Before they kind of had this like half-hearted, shoehorned in Pokemon Radar thing where every once in a rare great while you would run near tall grass and then it would start shaking and whatnot, and then that would mean that there's a Pokemon there, and then it would have, you know, a special attack that it normally wouldn't have, or it would have early, whatnot, so it would make it actually more valuable to catch than just a regular, you know, just running into it in tall grass. But they really improved on the Pokemon Radar to where Pokemon are just kind of popping out of the grass, like at least, like if you're just kind of running around in circles, one will pop up in like 10-15 seconds. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good one, but you know, there's still the higher chance that it'll either be higher in level, it'll have a move that it normally wouldn't have or would have early. They even have a greater potential if it's a specifically rare, you know, random Pokemon. They have this little potential meter in the radar, rated on 3 stars, and based on how many stars it has, I think, because I haven't really dug into this, but tells how many IVs that Pokemon has perfected, which, if you're a competition breeder, that's a big deal. You can catch, like my friend explained to me, like he caught a Pokemon in the wild that had natural 4 perfect IVs. That's unheard of. That's about like 3 or 4 hours worth of breeding to hit that. Let alone the 6 perfect IVs. And he just caught that out in the wild.
Right.
And then the other great thing about the Pokemon Radar is that when you're on a route, it shows you all the Pokemon that are on that route on just a little image in a map, and you hit the Pokemon, and then it'd tell you a little bit about it, and then you have a search function to where you can search for that specific Pokemon. And then when you run the search, then it'll pop up in a tall grass, and then you can sneak up on it and then battle it. So instead of, you just running around the tall grass trying to find a specific type of Pokemon, you can specify, I want this Pokemon, and then it'll pretty much be the next one that'll pop up in the tall grass. Normally, they're not as good as the random Pokemon that come out, but I've gotten a couple gems out of that. So it's just really nice and pretty much overall improved. I'm not that far in it, though. I've gotten 3 badges on the first continent. Oh yeah, not to mention, if anyone has been living under a rock, you can also go to the Hoenn continent too in this. So you got 2 full continents to explore. Also,
that was the continent from Gold and Silver, right?
I think so.
Okay.
It's been a while since I played Gold and Silver, so I don't remember.
I can't remember what they call any of the continents anymore.
Yeah, but also another thing that my friend told me, because I'm pretty sure he's beaten it by now, is that there is a buttload of legendaries that you can catch in this game. Like, he was just surprised at all of the legendaries you can catch. He basically said they're just giving you legendaries in terms of, finding them. They're not some special event that you gotta go to or download. They're just in the base game. And, he was just naming them off one right after another. I think he listed off like 15 different legendaries or something just in that short of time, and he said he still wasn't done catching them.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, that's pretty impressive. And that was pretty much one of my only gripes about the Pokemon games, where you could only catch a specific legendary in a specific game, and the only way to get that legendary in the next game is to go through their stupid BS trading thing, which, God, until they finally kind of nailed it with the Pokemon Bank. Granted, it's, what, $8 a year? But still, but still, it's a year, for $8. It's not that bad. But no, you can just transfer Pokemon between the games now, and it's much easier than going through all the crap from back in the cartridge on the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance stuff. It was just a nightmare. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying this. Although I am hitting my usual reason why I stopped playing Pokemon. Playing this. My whole I'm doing the same thing again thing.
Yep.
So I'm probably not gonna buy the next version of Pokemon that's gonna come out next year. Just I know it's gonna be next year. Come on, it's too much of a cash cow for Nintendo to just not release it yearly. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna buy it just because X and Y. We've gone into this. It was just such a re-engineering of the game that made it feel so different, and that it was its own game. And then now that I'm playing another game that's the exact same as X and Y in terms of graphic fidelity and whatnot, then I'm just like, oh no, it's kind of the same old. I'm doing this again type thing. I don't really want to, but yeah.
Right. You've scraped off the frosting, it's the same color cake as last year, so you're like, well...
Yeah.
I like the frosting, but that only gets me so far before I can't eat anymore.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll just say the last game that I've been playing, well, two, but I'll just kind of lightly tap on another. But the other kind of big one that I've been playing is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. It is a remake of the original Binding of Isaac. It is a roguelike dungeon crawler game. Kind of think Legend of Zelda dungeons from the NES, where they had like one rooms, like a screen room type thing.
Right.
And you just fight enemies,
you move in a square.
Yeah. Fight enemies, get keys, get some bombs, secret passages. Everything is randomly generated. Everything. So no two plays ever are the same. Doesn't matter. They're never the same. And with Rebirth, while yes, it's a remake of the original, they basically doubled the amount of content in it. In terms of just items, like I think that there's like 250 items that you can collect in the original, and now it's up to like maybe 500 different items that do all sorts of things. They added like, I think it was like 10 new bosses that you can fight. It's just a ton of content, and for the $15 price tag, like I sunk 90, almost 100 hours into the original Binding of Isaac. And while I haven't played it as much because I've been busy, I can see myself easily sinking that much time and more into it. Just because of the amount of content.
Yeah, I played it a bit when you were over once and you put it on my PC. It felt just like the original, but just improved in every conceivable way.
Especially since it's not being made in Flash anymore.
But that's the one thing, is I kind of liked the way the game looked in Flash.
Well, they do have a Flash filter that you can put on in the game, although it's more or less that pixel smoothing thing that you see in some games. It doesn't look like Flash, but it smooths them out, which honestly I think looks ugly as hell. And every single screenshot I see of it on the Steam forums, everyone's using it, and I can't stand it. It looks stupid.
I never played with that on, so I can't say. But...
No, it just looks stupid to me. I love the pixely look of it. And fun fact, the pixely look of it was actually how Edmund wanted it to be, but he just couldn't figure out how to get it in Flash.
Well, probably was.
And then,
he made that game in like a week, right, or something?
So yeah. And then the last game that I've been playing that I'll just kind of lightly touch on is Final Fantasy 13. Like I said, I'm a Final Fantasy fan. I just never got around to playing Final Fantasy 13 because it was on consoles, and by the time that came out, I had stopped buying consoles. So when I heard that Square Enix was releasing Final Fantasy 13 on Steam, I was just like, oh yeah, finally play these games. I know they're crap, but, I'll totally play Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and Lightning Returns. And I played through like 6 or 7 chapters in Final Fantasy 13, so I gotta get through the rest of that. Already pre-ordered 13-2, and will probably pre-order Lightning Returns whenever that comes out. So good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's great to see him releasing all the Final Fantasy games on PC, because I think that's really an untapped market at this point.
Yeah, I mean, can you guess what the most requested Final Fantasy game is that I know they're never going to release?
9?
Yep.
Yeah, I like 9.
Yeah. No, 9 is my all-time favorite RPG or Final Fantasy game of the entire series. And I know they're never going to release it on PC because it never had a PC port. If it had a PC port, then I'm pretty sure it would have been on Steam by now. but it just didn't, and I don't think they have the money to try and reverse engineer a PlayStation 1 game or concoct some sort of emulator to play it to make it viable.
They could emulate it, but the thing is, you would have to have a pretty beefy PC to play that game, and then people would complain.
Yeah. Which,
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So.
But if you want to play it, just download a PS1 emulator. It's fine.
No, I own the discs.
Yeah.
I own the discs, and I play it on. Actually, I could play it on my PS3 by playing the discs, or I could play it on my PS Vita because I downloaded it digitally.
Yeah. So there you go.
So yeah. There's options.
All right. Yeah. But yeah, they'll probably never put that one out. Because, yeah, you're right, they've never had a PC version. Okay, so is that it?
Yep, that's it. No, that's all the ones I kind of wanted to talk about.
Cool. I'll just go through a few real quick, because I bought a lot of games recently, but I haven't been playing too much. Bought Bayonetta on Wii U, and I'm really enjoying going through that game, but I probably haven't put as much time into it as I'd like. I have not actually played Bayonetta 2. I'm still playing Bayonetta 1, because I want to get through that and then, kind of refresh my memory as what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Or try to make sense of what was going on, I should say. And, yeah, looks great, plays great. I used the Classic Controller Pro because trying to hold that tablet for that period of time just hurts. So, also the game was clearly designed with that as the primary use, controller.
Yeah.
I don't think they really thought that tablet thing through. The only thing that you can do on the tablet is, use the touchscreen to move Bayonetta around and attack stuff. And it just feels... I used it once, and it was so chintzy and never really worked quite right that I just was immediately, give me a Pro Controller, I'm okay. The only other console game that I've put any time into is Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, which I bought the day it came out. Yeah, it's Smash Brothers. I mean, I don't hate it or anything like that. I sound very, unenthused. But it's exactly what I expected. Because they already put out the 3DS version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that plus more. So, yay. It's also the one game that's supposed to be, totally compatible with the Amiibo stuff, which is, their little Skylanders action figure thing. And personally, I don't think the Amiibo functionality adds all that much. I mean, you can basically just level them up and use them to fight against or fight with you in the game, and it's I don't know. It honestly seems like a half-baked idea. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of expecting them down the road to just release a Skylanders-like game where you just put the character down and then you can play as him in this weird game. And go around and beat people up. But I do like the idea that they're cross-game compatible. That's cool. But so far, I own 3 Amiibos. I have a Kirby, a Samus, and a Link. But so far, I haven't necessarily been all that impressed with them, I guess. They're fun, and I do like them, but yeah, I don't know how I necessarily feel about them overall. So yeah. But Super Smash Bros. On Wii U is great. I've been playing it all the time. I'm sure I don't have to go into too much detail because everybody else is probably talking about it too. The only other games I've been playing with any regularity is on my PC in the basement. I've loaded up a bunch of old PC games, and then I cracked them all so I don't have to put the discs in. And I've been playing through the original Call of Duty, which is one of my favorite games ever. And I know I go off on not being a big Call of Duty fan, but honestly, Call of Duty...
The original Call of Duties were great.
the original Call of Duty was great, and yeah. And just, I'm playing through it again. I'm on the Russian campaign, which is pretty late in the game, but it's just bringing back so many great memories, and I'm having so much fun with it. So many memorable missions, like taking out the dam, or boarding the battleship, or the march up to Stalingrad is just so, I don't know, there's just something about it that just feels so much more visceral than all these new Call of Duties that are, I don't know, more like action movies than, not to say that the first one isn't, but there's just something about it that I find really fun, charming about it. Again, it might be nostalgia, but oh well. Yeah, first Call of Duty, great. I know it's available on 360, surprisingly, so if anybody wants to play it, you can probably download it on there. And the only other game that I've played is a game called Armed and Dangerous, which, yeah, it's a really old LucasArts game from, like, 2003, and it's a third-person shooter. I would call it a squad shooter, but you don't really have much control over your squad, and they tend to die early in the missions, so there's really no point.
Really early in the missions.
Yeah. Like, they die almost immediately. But you play as a character called Rome, and the object of the game is to find what's called the Book of Rule, which is this magic book that will tell what's going to happen next in the game's story. And yeah, it's just like a ridiculously over-the-top Twitch-based shooter with a couple unique weapons. Like there's a bomb called the Topsy-Turvy Bomb where you screw it into the floor and then it flips the entire world upside down, and then everybody falls into the sky, and then you right the world again and everybody falls to their death. It's hilarious. There's a gun that shoots baby sharks that then turn into human or like adult sharks and hunt people down, and do the really hilarious Jaws thing where like it gets right underneath them and then they freak out and then it just eats them alive. Mm-hmm. The cutscenes are hilarious, and yeah, the humor's spot on. The only problem is or I should say my one complaint, which really isn't an issue because the game runs at like a smooth 60 frames a second no matter what's going on, because the game looks like crap. I mean, there's no two ways around it. The game, it doesn't even look like a stylistic choice. It looks like it's unfinished. Character models are like very, very chintzy looking, like they don't move quite right. They're missing polygons. I mean, the game came out, on the original Xbox and PC in 2003, but it looks like it could have come out on the PlayStation 1. So, again, it's not like a massive complaint or anything. It's just one of those things that even if I tried to show it to somebody, they would first ask me like, oh yeah, did this come out on like the Sega Saturn? Like, no, this actually came out on the Xbox and PC. But no, the game is fantastic. I think it plays really well. Again, it's plays really smooth. The comedy is spot on. It's got a really good sense of what it wants to be. So yeah, I have a blast with it. And again, the cutscenes are hilarious. They make like parodies to Star Wars and other famous movies and things. So, and it's got a pretty good variety of gameplay with all the different weapons and such. So there's a lot of positives. Yeah, so that's everything that I've been playing as of recently. I mean, obviously there's been a couple more, but those are the ones that I definitely wanted to mention. And again, try to track down Armed and Dangerous. I think you can get it.
You can buy it on Steam.
Is it on Steam?
Yep.
I highly recommend everybody buy it and try it out. It is so much fun.
That's how I played it.
Yeah, it is a blast. It really is. It's one of those LucasArts games that isn't Star Wars, and actually tries to do something different. So, but again, it looks like it could have been on the PlayStation 1, so bear that in mind. But it does play at a smooth 60 frames a second, as I said, so, there are bonuses. And you don't have to have a very powerful PC in order to actually play it, even at the time it came out. So, yeah. So that should wrap up everything that we want to talk about. One more thing I wanted to mention, of course, before we wrap this up is the audio track that was at the end of last episode. For those of you who were curious, it was the Altered Beast Powered Up track from the Sega Genesis game Altered Beast. So, kind of fitting given that we talked about the Sega Genesis 25th anniversary in that podcast. So I thought that'd be cool to stick at the end. Anyway, yeah, so that should be everything. Hope you guys had fun, and I guess we'll catch you next time. As always, I'm your host, Marauder.
I'm Phoenix923.
And we'll catch you guys on the next bonus stage.